Here, we're gonna have a little bit of a log jam here. I'm gonna go ahead and give you a warning up front. The chair recognizes Andrew Hopper, who is the chairman of the Committee on Nominations, for their report. And Andrew, why don't we just, if we could, you guys wouldn't mind standing at ease for just a moment. We'll give you a few minutes to get your committee up here.
All right, good morning. I am a messenger from Mercy Hill Church in Greensboro, North Carolina. Man, I thank you guys for allowing us to serve in this incredible capacity. It's been just a great experience. I want to say a special thank you to Miss Becky Chandler and our executive staff. They are tireless and know things that no human could be able to know, how they hold all these things in their mind. It's just an unbelievable thing that we've been able to watch, and we have been blessed by that, especially serving 2 years and also serving during a COVID era. They have been a massive blessing to us. I wanted to introduce you guys to our subcommittee that kind of represents our committee as a whole, and I just wanted to introduce them to you guys. This is Jordan from Missouri. This is Aaron from New Mexico. This is Carla from Georgia. This is Bev from Florida, and this is Michelle from Nevada, our vice chair, Michelle Dickens. So they kind of represent what our committee has been about, and I am so excited to have them stand with me today. As a group, I speak for our committee, and I just say we are incredibly humbled by this opportunity. I came to Christ in a small Southern Baptist church off of County Road 220 in North Florida. Went to a Baptist college, then a Baptist seminary. Was planted through, our church was planted in 2012 through Baptist Networks. Sitting here this week and watching in tears as our convention commissions missionaries and talks about church planting and talks about messaging to a watching world. We have been incredibly humbled to play a small part by bringing a slate to our incredible entity. So I speak entirely on, for our entire committee when I say, man, we had a lot of unity and we learned a ton through this process. I do want to say this, y'all, this was not easy. I think you guys can probably understand just as pastors and as lay leaders, trying to wrangle a committee that ends up having over almost 300 names that are put forth, and doing all that while never being able to meet in person one time was not easy. We were going to meet for our 2020 slate, and COVID kind of shut that down, and things were not open enough for us to meet again. We have done all this through Zoom and through email, but our team has had an incredible spirit of unity, and they have worked incredibly hard. Our process for this has been simple. We wanted to go after people from churches who hold the gospel above all, who think about evangelism well, whose hearts break for the nations, and just know how vital the next generation coming behind us is. Man, our nominators from different states, background check, they try to fit people into what their giftings would be as best as they could. And man, we also really wanted to represent the entire Southern Baptist Convention. We thought about how over 10,000 congregations are majority non-Anglo. And presumably, this would make sense, that 50% of Southern Baptists are female. And so, we thought, man, this needs to show up in our slate. But not just those things. This slate is filled with churches from urban centers and rural centers, multi-site, single-site, large, small. And praise God, we have been able to see so much of that happen. This slate is filled with church planters and long-standing pastors, church revitalizers, lay people of all stripes, deacons, business people, small group leaders. On this slate, there is a pastor whose home was in China, stay-at-home moms. We have a principal from Georgia, a naval chaplain from Baltimore. I mean, this is the SBC, and this is who we wanted to put forward. In fact, over these 2 years, when you put these two slates together, man, we had a real eye on people's cooperation and leaning into the cooperative program. On average, these churches represent 8% CP giving. 25% of our nominations were female, 30% were non-Anglo, and there was almost a dead split between churches that are a little bit smaller and churches that are a little bit larger. So, y'all, we're proud of this committee. They did incredible work, and I told them hey, this is your work to do. Lean into pastors and lay leaders and state leaders. But ultimately, the Southern Baptist Convention has asked you to go find people in your state. That's what they did. This is our slate, and I move that we adopt the reports.
Thank you, Andrew Hopper. And I just wanted to also commend you. I know that Andrew and many of the men and women on stage, both here and previously, have had the unenviable task of serving not 1 year as normal, but 2 years. And just the way that they have striven to reflect not only the values of Southern Baptist, Great Commission Baptist, but also, as Andrew stated, have striven to reflect not only who we are as a convention and bring that more in line, but also who we believe that God is making to us. In fact, just looking at that committee on committees that was up here earlier, feeling like, I don't know, a small taste of Revelation 5 as you see Americans from different ethnicities and different ages and different walks of life coming together in unity around the gospel. And so I want to commend you and your team. But the question is on the adopting of the report on the Committee on Nominations as printed in your convention bulletin on page 21. You probably saw that when you were on page 20 with the Committee on Committees. That is where it is listed there. The question is on the adopting of that report. Are you ready for the question?
Ask microphone 3A to state his amendment.
Microphone 3A, would you state your amendment?
Thank you, Mr. President. My name is Matt Carter, messenger from Cedar Street Church in Holt, Michigan. I move that the nominating committee's slate of candidates be amended to replace Nancy Spalding, nominee for the executive committee from Michigan, with Jerome Taylor of Eastgate Baptist Church in Burton, Michigan.
Is there a second? Could you repeat the name of your nominee, sir?
Yes, Mr. President. It's Jerome Taylor of Eastgate Baptist Church in Burton, Michigan.
Okay, and you can, having a second, you can speak to your amendment. I just want to remind you that this is a time where you are free to commend the person you are recommending, but not to attack the person that you are suggesting that they replace.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President, and that is my hope in this time. First, let me thank the committee for their hard work over the past 2 years in preparing this report. Zoom meetings are difficult, especially with many people, so thank you all for your work. As has been stated numerous times during this annual meeting, we are at a critical time in the life of our convention, and this is especially true in regards to the role and authority of the executive committee. These trustee positions matter immensely and call for individuals who are knowledgeable in convention affairs and have demonstrated a commitment to working for the good of the convention. Jerome has exhibited that by leading his church to give 10% annually to a cooperative program, by serving as a messenger of 9 annual meetings, and serving faithfully in numerous roles for our state convention, including a previous president of our state convention. Jerome is a gracious and godly person who understands the times we are in as a convention, and I believe he will be able to effectively represent the churches of Michigan and the Southern Baptist Convention on the executive committee. Thank you.
Andrew, you wish to respond?
Yeah, I appreciate that, and man, I know in a room filled this size, we are all going to know incredibly qualified people that could do a great job with these things. We were tasked with a job, and the way that we kind of went through our process, and this was my decision, is to lean heavily on the people that you guys kind of put in place to make these recommendations. I know that our nominators from Michigan are really excited about Nancy. They have, we've had multiple conversations in that way, and so I'm sure Brother Jerome is a great candidate. I do not know him. He has not been vetted by our committee, and so we want the will of the messengers. But our job was to bring forth the best slate that we could, and we feel like Nancy is the one that we want to put forward.
Okay, and so we will consider the motion to amend, and that is to replace. Make sure I get the name right. To replace Nancy Spalding with Jerome Taylor. Is that correct? Okay, yes. All right. So if you are in favor of replacing Nancy Spalding with Jerome Taylor, then if you would indicate that by uplifted ballot. All opposed, the same sign. Okay, and so the amendment fails. Microphone 8A, would you state your amendment, please?
Mr. President, my name is Tate Cockrell, messenger from Faith Baptist Church in Youngsville, North Carolina. I move to amend a credential committee nomination within the Committee of Nominations report to substitute James W. Everett with John Damon. And I'd like to speak to that.
Okay. So which board are you referring to?
The Credentials Committee.
Do you mind giving us the page?
I don't have it in front of me.
I'm hearing 27. Is that correct?
29.
27 is correct. Sword Drill Award for my brother here in the fifth row. And who do you wish to replace, sir?
Sorry. James Everett with John Damon.
James Everett with John Damon.
Correct.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. You may speak for your candidate, sir.
Mr. President, it's the Credentials Committee responsibility to take questions related to whether churches are in friendly cooperation. While those issues may be wide-ranging, the most pressing issues are questions around abuse. While counseling is not part of their task, the responsibility of dealing with the weighty and complex issues of abuse deals with very sensitive interactions and circumstances. I believe the inclusion of a mental health professional would be very beneficial to this committee to prevent some of the problems we've already heard about this morning. Someone on the committee needs to have the education, training, and expertise to ensure the highest standards are met in handling these complex cases. Currently, there's not a mental health professional who has vast experience dealing with these kinds of sensitive issues on this committee. I've known John Damon for almost 20 years. Dr. Damon is currently the CEO of Canopy Children's Services in Jackson, Mississippi, one of the largest full-scale family service agencies in the United States. He's dealt with the ravages of abuse and trauma upon adults, children, and families for his entire career. He has also served his local church for over 15 years. Dr. Damon currently serves the Mississippi Children's Justice Commission. He has studied and focused his work on abuse, neglect, and the impact of trauma. He has a passion for protecting families and the integrity of our churches. Dr. Damon has been a Southern Baptist for 40 years and a man of integrity who has a heart for hurting people. He would bring a valuable and informed perspective that I believe is missing from the current Credentials Committee.
Thank you, my brother. Andrew, do you wish to respond on behalf of the committee?
Yeah. Man, thank you, brother. This one's a little interesting for us because our committee had 2 spots to fill. We filled them with George Russ and Sarah Mills. Our committee on nominations does not fill this spot. This spot comes from the EC, and so I don't know Jim Everett, and I also don't know Dr. Damon. So at this point, I feel like it would need to be, from the floor if there's other people who want to speak to this or something like that.
So Jim Everett was put forward by the EC, not your nominating committee.
Yeah, he was not our pick.
Okay.
We were not given that one to
Let me
replace.
confer very briefly with the parliamentarians, so stand at ease for just a moment. Okay, so yes, then the question is, do you want to replace on page 27, if you want to replace Jim Everett with John Damon? Are you ready for the question? Okay, if you are in favor of that replacement, if you would indicate so by uplifted ballot. All opposed, the same sign. The negative has it. 9A, if you would state your amendment.
My name's Louis Richardson. I'm a messenger from Woodlawn Baptist Church in Baton Rouge. I rise to replace Mr. David Sons with Tom Tucker. Tom Tucker is in his first round of service on the executive committee.
Just the suggested amendment first. So give us the page number. So I'd like everybody to be able to follow along and not be trying to find a needle in a haystack here.
Page 21.
21. And which board?
Executive committee.
Executive committee. Page 21, executive committee. The nominee, so Tom, okay, where are we? All right, so who is the nominee that you want to replace?
I'd like to replace David. I would like to replace David Sons with Tom Tucker.
David Sons with Tom Tucker, okay. Is there a second? Second. Okay, you may now speak to your amendment.
Tom Tucker has been on the executive committee for one term. He was reelected yesterday by the executive committee as the vice chairman of the executive committee. He was replaced by David Sons with no explanation from the nominating committee. He currently is or has served in the past as executive committee chair in South Carolina and president of the South Carolina Convention. He's a vocational evangelist. Just 2 years ago, this convention supported an ERLC trustee who was attempted to be removed even though he had not served his second term. It is the precedence of this convention to allow committee members to serve 2 terms. I would make an appeal to this convention to allow this brother to serve out his second term, as supported by the executive committee, being re-elected just yesterday as the vice chairman of the executive committee.
Okay, thank you, friend. Andrew, do you wish to respond on behalf of the committee?
Brother, I appreciate the question. I feel like there's been some discussion on this, so I appreciate the opportunity to talk through it here for just a moment. One of the great things to note about this is that this decision by our committee is not recent. This decision was from 2020. It was a unanimous decision made by our committee over a year and a half ago. So this wasn't a day and a half ago. This was a year and a half ago, right before the shutdown and all of that. I think it's also good to note that this is not any type of broken procedure. It's not any type of broken rule. It's not something that is totally unprecedented. What we realize here is that even though it may feel very traditional, and it is traditional, it is not a broken rule. Our committee has sought to honor the way that the bylaws on these things are written and the traditions that we all hold dear, and I think that we have done that. The way that these rules are written is that we have an opportunity to re-elect. In this situation, our committee, and especially our nominators from South Carolina, decided not to do that for a simple reason. There's not a boogeyman behind this. It's just that while you are correct that Mr. Tucker had served one term, he had come in on a previous term. And so he had not only served 2 years of a previous term, but then served his full term, and then was going to be given another term. So it's not about really a second term. We're talking about kind of a super term, a long term. That may have not bothered some nominators from different states, but our nominators decided that they wanted to go a different direction for that reason. And so we voted unanimously to move in that direction. I think it is the right direction. So that's our decision, and we're unanimous. We really stand by it. Our entire committee was sent a letter by a previous presidential candidate to our homes, really pushing this and talking about this decision, even talking about how it broke protocol, which is false. There's no official broken rules here. And so we revisited it again in 2021, even though it was a year and a half old. And our committee was just unanimous that this is the direction that we need to go.
Okay, so time for this report has expired, which means that we need to first vote on the proposed amendment, which is to replace, one more time, could you state the name of the person we're replacing, microphone 9? Or David Sons, I got it, it's okay. Replacing David Sons, the nominating committee's nomination, and replacing that with Tom Tucker, okay? So if you are in favor of that replacement, if you would indicate so by uplifted ballot. All opposed, the same sign.
Amen.
So the amendment fails. Now, if you are in favor, we're going to vote on the adoption of the report of the Committee on Nominations. If you are in favor of the adoption of their report,
It's both. It's both reports.
both parts, 2020 and 2021, a first in Southern Baptist history, if you would indicate so by uplifted ballot. Okay? All opposed, the same sign. Reports of 2020 Committee on Nominations and 2021 are adopted. Chair now recognizes